prestigious-sounding New York political magazine that he had never heard of before. He told her he'd been a subscriber since he was 15 and that it would be a dream come true. He printed out the application from their website, and she wrote him a letter, and the next thing he knew, he was on a plane east. His boss in New York had close-cropped hair and a permanent turtleneck, the arts and letters editor. One day they happened to return from their separate lunches at the same time and stood together in the low drone of the elevator. Danny ventured to comment that he was excited to see a new Branford Marsalis album coming out. He knew this because the editor had gotten a review copy in the mail earlier that day, and, naturally, opening and sorting the editor's mail was one of Danny's several jobs. The editor brightened and asked if Danny was a fan, and Danny said yes, he was. The editor asked what record Danny liked best, and he said, Without a Net, which the editor said he'd never heard of. Danny explained that it was a double live Grateful Dead record on which Marsalis sits in for a totally sick Eyes of the World. Let this anecdote serve as synecdoche for Danny's time in New York. Percy, meanwhile, had been relocated by the union to organize nursing homes all across Oregon State. He was moving to Portland, too. He took an apartment on Southeast Belmont Street in a low-rise building with open walkways across from a gourmet grocery store that he never once patronized. The first nursing home was in a town called La Grande, way out east in the Oregon desert, closer to Idaho than Portland. He lived in a motor lodge during the week, and on Fridays drove the 4 hours back to the city. But for what? Nobody and nothing. Maybe drinks with Ellen and Rachel, if they were even around. He took his loneliness out on Kat, who was still back in Schmall. Not that he said it in so many words, but he was asking for her to come be with him. And who knew, Kat thought, but that maybe now they had a chance at the real thing. So Kat sat around at the Belmont Street apartment while Percy was away all week organizing the nurses. He sent her lascivious promissory emails from his motel, and she responded in enthusiastic kind, while IMing in a separate window with Danny in New York about his frustrations with the internship, her own boredom, and how, despite everything, it was honestly pretty cool. Gorgeous, cheap, progressive, the Great Northwest. Kat was looking for temp work. Once she had a job, her days wouldn't be so empty and long. And once the La Grande home was organized, Percy would ask the union to give him something closer to base so he could actually live in his apartment. And then they'd just see what they saw, wouldn't they? Danny supposed they would. Portland's a drawing card, Kat said, quoting that Raymond Carver story where the guy's wife sells vitamins while he sneaks around with her friend. Rachel had asked Marcus to go with her to Portland, but he was unwilling to give up his good job at the hardware store in Schmall. She'd decided to live alone rather than share a place with Ellen and Ellen's boyfriend, Scott, a reasonably talented DJ with family money. It was assumed that Scott would soon propose to Ellen. He was balding, so his time seemed short, and it was understood among the friends that Ellen was bound to become famous like Miranda July. Ellen thought about how she'd phrase the Facebook update when the day came, or if instead she'd just post a picture of the ring on her finger, let the commentariat figure it out for themselves. Rachel got a one-bedroom apartment on a street whose name was spelled couch, but inexplicably pronounced cooch in the local demotic. She lived 6 blocks from Percy and Kat. The three ganged up on Danny about joining them. Percy and Kat said he could crash in their living room indefinitely. They had a futon. Rachel was notably silent on the subject of where Danny might live. Danny had $1,500 in the bank. Since he wouldn't be paying rent, the money would last him a while, which meant he could devote himself entirely to 2 objectives. 1, write the great American novel despite having never experienced anything of significance other than Rachel. 2, Rachel. Danny, no sap like Kat, understood that he and Rachel would never be together. And yet, the allure of what they inflicted on each other, the sheer thrill of wounding and the deep satisfaction of licking each other's wounds clean, was too great to resist. He could not imagine living without it. He felt like he was waking from one of those dreams where, when you're dreaming, you think you're awake, and only when you wake up do you realize that what you thought was your waking life was in fact another tier of the big deep dream. Or was it? Like Chang Tzu in The Butterfly, Danny thought to himself, as the landing gear groaned and the plane began its descent into PDX.